Hello everyone and welcome to another Starcraft 2 video. For this one I want to do a tutorial on how to engineering bay block, and specifically how to chain engineering bay blocks versus Zerg so that the Zerg can never actually throw down an expansion. So engineering bay blocks is something that's not really in the meta anymore in TvZ. It was for different periods of time in Starcraft 2. There's more preferred builds now, obviously, but it doesn't mean that this build is weak. And the less used the build is, the less likely your opponent is to know a strong reaction to it. So I would say an engineering bay block puts both players about equally far behind, assuming he was going 15 hatch. Yet, where you have a planned follow-up to it, your opponent does not. So I have a set build. It's already in my head. I know what I'm doing. My opponent sees this and he may have no idea what to do. In fact, maybe you're a Zerg player now and you may not know the best reaction. Should I immediately try to take an alternate base? Should I throw down a pool and gas? Should I pull workers to attack this engineering bay? Should I throw down a macro hatch? Should I send out one drone, two drones, more? Like it's not super obvious, and there's some reactions that will just flat out lose the game for Zerg. For instance, if they pull a bunch of workers to kill engineering bay, that does almost nothing to put me behind, and they've just completely destroyed their own early game income. A macro hatch here, yeah, will give him more larva production, but now he can't expand, so you're basically stuck on an all-in or playing from way behind. So there's a lot of bad reactions, and I find a lot of opponents, they may not be very good at being creative or adaptive players. They may just have like this, here's my set build order, and I know exactly how to react to the standard things that my opponent does. And then if you throw them out of that comfort zone, they can get into like some really precarious situations where they react very poorly. So it looks like the Overlord saw my SCV, so he actually sent out two drones. I can try to dance my SCV a bit on the engineering bay to get some distance. But eventually this can happen, where even if it's just one drone, if he's attacking your SCV, he may just decide to leave and try to build an alternate base. And when he leaves, you need to pull off of the engineering bay. You need to accelerate from scratch and then get up to full speed while chasing the drone. And almost always he'll get a separation distance, something like this, which will allow him to throw down a hatchery at another base. Or will it? So, there is an advantage to engineering bay blocking over, say, pylon block, and that is that the engineering bay is a larger structure than a pylon. And you might think, well, who cares what the size of an engineering bay is? Like any structure that blocks a hatchery blocks a hatchery. Well, the size actually does matter quite a bit, Kappa, because it gives you extra reach. He needs to throw his hatchery exactly in this center location. I do not need to put my engineering bay in this center location. In fact, all I need to do is cover this corner hex right here. And if we extend that out to the size of an engineering bay, now all of a sudden my SCV, you can see, is closer to being able to place the structure than the drone is. I also avoid the deceleration of the SCV, which I'll talk about later, which allows me to throw down my structure immediately where he needs to decelerate to throw down the hatchery. Once again, looks like he has good separation distance. Going to be able to get the hatchery. No, denied. So, when he decides to throw down that expand north, I can see he's going north, but you notice I haven't placed the engineering bay here yet. And there's two good reasons for that. One is that to place it now, I would have to cut SCV production, and I don't want to do that. So keeping my money available for other things for a longer period of time is important. And two is that you can use this method for placing every structure. Pros do this because it saves you like a split second. If you throw down a engineering bay and I place it from far away, the SCV will approach to where the engineering bay location is, then it'll decelerate, then it'll place the engineering bay, and you lose a split second in that deceleration. Or instead, if I just click my SCV like up here, And then as soon as it gets in range of where I want to place the engine bay, I place it. Then it doesn't decelerate at all. Yeah, so next question might be, well, how do you know how to block the corner hex perfectly? Like, do you have to be really anal and go on like every single map and figure out the exact how to place in the way to block the corner of like the first 5 bases on both sides of the map? So that's 10 bases per every ladder map. And no, you don't have to do all that memorization. There's actually methods to figure out how to get that corner hex, which I guess I'll hop in the game and show you. So this is the standard location. You know, this is where you place the hatchery or the nexus or command center. And you'll notice it is exactly 3 hexes away from the gas geysers. Never 4, never 2. And always 3 hexes away from the front minerals. Never 4, never 2. So based on that, if I want to block this command center, if I go flush against the gas geyser or minerals, it won't be close enough. But if I leave one gap, it'll perfectly block the bottom row. So that top row of this engineering bay now will block the bottom row of the command center. And then based on that, you can just kind of wing it, right? So as I'm going up here, I can say, well, this is the engineering bay flush against the minerals, so I gotta go up one, and then maybe over here is like the corner. And you just kind of guess. And if you eyeball it, even if you're off by 1, it's okay if you're covering 2 hexes. The majority of the time, it may, if it's super close, it may cost you. But eyeballing it is a method that works pretty consistently and will get you within 1 or 2 hexes. Now, there is ways to get exact. Now, in somewhat special cases, but very common cases. Now, many expansions, I would say maybe half of them in Starcraft 2, have a very standard layout where if you put the engineering bay directly adjacent to the gas geyser, or adjacent to this gas geyser, it'll perfectly block the corner hex of the hatchery. So you just need to do it directly across from a gas geyser. Now, obviously, that doesn't apply to every base. Like this one has 2 gas geysers on the same side, so it doesn't work here. Cerulean Falls, like the forward third base, is set up in a weird method where if you go directly across, it actually won't block the hatchery. You gotta go 1 down. But it's a pretty standard method. The other method to get exact placement has to do with the fact that if you misplace your first command center, say I'm off by a hex there, this can literally lose you the game. The fact that it takes so many more SCVs to get fully saturated mining at such a key income part of the game that a lot of map makers say to themselves, like, this tiny mistake should not cost SE2 games, so let's try to remove it from the game. And the way they do it is they put some sort of symbol in the center of every base, like a square or a circle or some sort of icon. And then once you learn how to Eng Bay block that icon or square or circle perfectly, then you've just all of a sudden discovered how to Eng Bay block every base on the map perfectly, because that symbol will be on every base. And then since a typical ladder map lasts for about 8 months, that gives you like 1 piece of knowledge will last you for 8 months on that ladder map. So that's how I put things in the corner. But if in doubt, just free eye it. You know, go 1 up in the minerals or the gas geyser, and then just trying to go somewhere towards the corner. That's probably blocking 2 hexes. You get a feel for it if you do it often. Here's the deceleration I was talking about. If you place this engineering bay here from far away, you notice right before the SCV places it, it slows down. It's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see it. Slows down at the end. Where if I come out here and just wait until the SCV is in the green and then press it, no deceleration at all. And that's something you can use for all of your structures as a Terran player. Like even if you want to place your barracks at your ramp, your first barracks, you can use that same method, and that will place your barracks a split second faster, which will get your SCV back to your mineral line a split second faster. Is that a huge difference? No, but everything adds up. You'll notice the pros do it if you watch GSL. Yeah, so I did say this build is weak, or I said this build is puts both players behind. So because of that, your advantage is that you have a set follow-up and your opponent doesn't. Now your set follow-up can't be, or probably won't be exactly like your normal, gas, barracks, Reaper, command center, factory, because everything's going to be slowed down from going into bay first, so you may need to adjust your build. And that's something you can experiment with yourself. I do a very unique opening build, which where I go immediately up to 4 command centers, yet I'm perfectly safe versus Bailing Bust and Ravager all in. And you can kind of induce Bailing Bust and Ravager all in often doing an engineering bay block. Some Zergs see like, oh, I can't take my hatchery, then we just throw down both gas geysers and smash this guy's face with an all in because I don't want to deal with his engineering block nonsense. So for that reason, I find this build is super strong. The fact that you go straight to 4 command centers is amazing economically, and you're safe against any hatchery based all in. Layer based all ins are a different story, but can't be strong versus everything. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check out my channel. I'll put a couple specific examples in the description below, a couple TvZs you can watch. But if you just go to my channel or my Twitch stream, almost every TvZ I'm edge bay blocking, so you can get the examples that way. So with that, we'll call it the end of this video. I hope this was somewhat informative for a build that's not in the meta now, but may come back, or a build you may just want to use yourself, because the less common a build is, the less common it is for your opponent to know how to react correctly. That's kind of like a cool balance in Starcraft too, The strongest builds are the strongest, but they're also the most known. Where if you use a weaker build that's less known, it's weaker, but your opponent doesn't know how to react to it, which in turn makes it stronger, So I kind of like that aspect of Starcraft too. Throw your opponent out of his comfort zone and see, how well he can adapt. With that, we'll call it the end of this video. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'm out of here. Goodbye.